Hi, my name is Divina Anandraja and my metric number is 4242211006. The topic I'm going to talk is about guideline of prevention stress and violence at the workplace 2001. Introduction. Violence and stress are major threats to society and enterprise. They cause in terms of disruption, bad image, absenteeism, turnover, accidents at work, burnout, and compensation are increasing become apparent. Most important, these threats negatively affect the overall capacity of organization to perform and be competitive. The problem affects practically all sectors and all categories of workers. Eliminating and above threats in this, therefore, a priority target for entrepreneurs, managers, employees, and policymakers. Definition for stress and violence. First, I'm going to talk about stress. The physical and emotional response that occurs when the requirements of the job do not match the capabilities, resources, or needs of the employee. There are positive and negative stress. Under normal circumstances, employees should be able, by activating their reaction mechanisms, to find new balance and respond to new situation. Stress is not necessarily a negative phenomenon. If health is considered as a dynamic equilibrium, stress is a part of it, for there is no health without interaction with other people and with the environment. Some stress is normal and necessary, but if stress is intense, continuous, and or repeated, if the person is unable to cope, or if support is lacking, then stress becomes a negative phenomenon, leading to physical illness or psychologically disorders. Okay, from early disorder to real illness, the harmful consequence of stress cover a broad range, from chronic fatigue to depression, by way of insomnia, anxiety, migraine, emotional upsets, stomach ulcer, okay, and can culminate in the most serious consequence of all, like heart attacks, accidents, and even suicides. Second is about violence. Incidents are employees are abused, threatened, assaulted, or subject to other offense behavior in circumstances related to their work. Physically violence and psychologically violence, there are two violence. While the existence of physical violence at the workplace has been always recognized, the existence of psychological violence has been long underestimated and now only receive due attention. Psychologically violence is current emerging as priority concern at the workplace. It is also increasing recognized that psychologically violence is often perpetrated through repeated behavior of a type which by itself may be relatively minor, but which cumulatively can become a very serious form of violence. Although a single incident can suffice, psychological violence often consists of repeat unwelcome, which may have a devastating effect on a victim. Physical and psychologically violence often overlap in practice, making any attempt to categorize different form of violence very difficult. Example, sexual harassment. Unwanted conduct of sexual that is perceived by the victim as placing a condition of sexual nature on her or his employment, or that might, on reasonable grounds, be perceived by the victim of an offense, or humiliating, or a threat to his or her well-being. Second example, assault or attack. Attempt at a physical injury or attack on a person leading to actual physical harm. It includes beating, kicking, slapping, stabbing, shooting, biting, sex assault, and rape, and among others. Next is about gender. The gender dimension should be given special consideration when tackling stress and violence at workplace. Stress at work affects both men and women. However, women are often faced with the additional burden of combining family and work responsibilities. Due to occupational segregation, women often find themselves in jobs where there is a heavy workload combined with little decision making, autonomy, and participants. These two factors result in women often having to deal with more stressful situations than men. At work, women are also particular risk of violence because they are concentrated in many of high-risk jobs such as technique, teaching, social work, nursing, and other health care, as well as in banks, shops. In general, men tend to be at greater risk of physical assault, while women are particularly vulnerable to incidents of sexual nature, such as harassment. Approach. Stress and violence at work are not isolated individual problems but structural, strategic issue rooted in wider social, economics, organizational, and cultural factors. The response, therefore, needs to be directed at the causes rather than the effects of violence at work. It should be concentrate on the adoption of preventive, systematic, and participative interventions. A participatory approach means that all parties concerned consider it worthwhile to work together in reducing work-related stress and violence, and the such parties have an active role in designing and implementing anti-stress and anti-violence initiatives. For a participatory process to occur, it is important to create the trust necessary for open communication. It is particularly important to clarify, especially among low-status employees who share openly about their feelings to occupational stress and violence, and their ideas for changes in the work environment are not only protected from reprisals but value for the positive contribution by the management. Next is about a stepwise approach. It is essential that anti-stress and violence action be carried on a systematic way, be a series of fundamental steps. Okay, this includes stress recognition, stress assessment, anti-stress intervention, and monitoring, and also evaluation. Next is stress and violence recognition. Okay, the importance of early recognition of preconditions and a signal of stress and violence need to be emphasized, since it allows to intervene before stress becomes a major problem or a violence manifests itself. Even though each precondition and a signal may be due to other factors, they combine occurrence at once may require the need to take anti-stress, violence, and anti-violence actions. At the individual level, stress, example, dry throat, muscle tension, headaches, indigestion, insomnia, high blood pressure. Difficult in making decisions, sudden increase in smoking or alcohol use, or also daydreaming. Next, about violence. Perpetrator such as a history of violence, example, being male, being young, having troubled childhood, substance abuse, certain form of severe mental illness, and being in a situation conducive to violence, including having access to firearms. Victims, example, being a young and inexperienced person, being a woman, showing a personality, temperament, attitudes, and appearance that trigger violence by the perpetrator. In conclusion, for both stress and violence, high levels of absenteeism, staff turnover, work accidents, including minor accidents, and disabilities are often linked with stressful and violent situations. Low productivity levels, example like poor quality production, frequent breakdowns, and difficult interpersonal relationship in the workplace may also associated with stress and violence. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening.